Al,
I call the meeting of the Nantucket Land Bank Commission to order for.
No.
Hang on, I'd like to transfer some land to the town.
Oh, I'm wrong with that. I'm sorry. I'll call the meeting of the Nantucket Cemetery Commission to order for April 9th. I declare we have a quorum present, and we'll go directly to the agenda. I'm sorry, let me.
I thought it might be a good idea because we have
Yeah,
guests.
let me get the attendance then.
Okay,
We'll go through the commissioners first.
Scott McIver.
Francis Coachman,
Lee Saperstein.
Alan Reinhardt. And then we have three guests. Jason.
Leonardo Finger.
Okay, Jason, you got that?
Yes.
Angela Marcelino,
And Andrea?
Angela,
Oh,
Angela.
Angela. Okay, you got that?
I do.
And you have Rob.
I do.
Okay, so we are all present and accounted for. Good, sorry about the delay in getting out of the way. Public comment, any public comment? And commissioners? Okay, approval of minutes from our March 12th meeting, those minutes were circulated.
I move that we accept the minutes from March 12th meeting.
I'm thinking.
Okay,
Thank you.
motion second, all in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Lee,
I,
Fran,
I,
Scotty,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Okay, approval of lot sales since our last meeting. I have two things to announce under this. First, we have a request from Caroline Ellis. She purchased a lot couple of years
I
ago,
remember that.
lot G9, and apparently she's found another. I'm not sure if she's going to columbarium or if she's found something else, but anyway, she put in a request for a refund for her for the lot sale. I told her I would bring it to the commission. As we state in our regulations, that anyone who finds that they don't need a burial plot and they pay for it, that we will refund their whatever they paid for it. So that's our policy. So I would entertain a motion then to refund to Caroline Ellis the $900 that she paid for lot G.
I'll move approval.
I'll
In a
second.
second.
Scott,
Yeah.
second.
And okay, that takes care of.
We probably should vote.
Well, we will.
Oh, we'll do them both. Okay.
And what else have happened with this one here? Oh, I got a call from someone. They want to do a funeral, or I'm sorry, they want to do an interment on July 1st. I've already communicated this to our what's her name? The secretary.
Vanessa or no, Vanessa or Carrie
Carrie, what's her last name?
Drayton.
Oh, that's right. Carrie Drayton is there.
Our new TK.
Right.
Our new Takara.
Yeah.
She's taking Takara's role for us.
Now is she going to be taking over the paperwork?
I believe so.
Anyway, so I contacted Carrie Drayton, who's going to be dealing with the paperwork. She's the new person who came on. I think we met her last time. And so I relayed the information to her. They want this is Gary Beck. They want to, this is his wife. They want to do an interment on July 1st, a Tuesday. And we sent her the order the forms for the interment and also for the monument. Apparently, she's been in touch with.
Yeah.
She has, okay, great.
It's right on. What's the name
Of the,
person who's contacted you?
MJ Beck. Yes, that's her first name.
No, her name is. Last name.
Beck.
Oh, Beck. Beck is the last name, yeah. And
Thank
she-
you.
She goes by MJ. So anyway, I spoke with her. Had the forms sent to her. She's gonna execute the forms and get them back by email. So as soon as those come in, gonna send them directly to Kara at the DPW, so.
Is this something we have to vote on?
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
No,
No, the only vote is the approval of the refund.
exactly.
Should we do that now?
Oh, I thought we did that.
No.
Jeez.
We keep it
Maybe
straight
I
out.
could get a late start here. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor to approve the refund for Caroline Ellis.
The motion.
And Scott seconded.
Yeah, but we haven't voted on it yet.
That's
Right.
right.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Lee,
Aye.
got it.
Aye.
Fran,
Oh,
chair vote aye.
Thank you. So for our guests, one of the reasons for this mild formality is that we are being recorded and anybody with access to a computer can watch it. And so we want to make sure we follow whatever rules prevail for a town committee.
We try to follow the regulations.
Yeah, Robert's rules.
It's a lot more formal than that.
Oh,
It's
is it?
called the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Open Meeting Law.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And there's a wonderful training program for it too. That only lasts for an hour or two or three. Okay, next item, Newtown Cemetery.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 4.
Restoration.
Sorry, Monument Restoration Project. So Charlie, we have Newtown and the bid for New North, correct?
Yeah, still holding the bid for New North. It's in process, but ready to roll. Newtown Cemetery, they've acquired the materials they need. So I've been invoiced for that, and LMC's on Islands, and they will be beginning, I'm assuming any time now. They've got a handful of other projects that go through, they're going, fencing stuff they're doing for me. So like on the rainy day where they, won't be doing mortar mixing or setting stones, they'll be bouncing around. So they'll be proceeding. You'll see them in the cemetery.
Sure. So are we starting whenever they?
I think I know they're ordering the materials, D2 Solution, the specialized mortars and stuff for the stone repairs. Once they get the stuff onto the island, I'm sure they'll be rolling.
Yeah.
keep
So
an eye out.
this will be the 4th of the 5 cemeteries that we've gone through and restored or fixed up or cleaned the monuments in 4. The town owns 9 cemeteries. There are monuments. Well, there are monuments in the 5 oldest, largest cemeteries. And we have been, we started a monument restoration project about, 4 years ago?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years
I
ago.
remember walking with
We
Scott.
started talking about it.
Yeah, well, we did,
Yeah.
we did.
We went through and we did 1, 2, 3.
So
It was a
anyway.
category of the amount of work needed per stone.
So once we do Newtown Cemetery, this would be the 4th cemetery. It's also, I think, the 2nd largest. of the cemeteries in terms of the number of stones that are there. And what we're doing in each of these cemeteries are going through any of the stones that are off kilter, or some of them are just down in the ground and so on. We have done that restoration. We're making sure all the stones are straight up. And we've also been using the D8 cleaner. It's a
It's called a
B2?
biologic
yeah,
solution.
thank you. And it's something designed specifically for doing gravestones. Or maybe it's does for other things too, but you know, it's
If you recall, Alan, Jason runs a class on cleaning stones for the private cemetery.
exactly.
Yeah, I do it under the guise of the Monumental Association, but I do it at Prospect.
I have taken
Yeah,
that
he's
close
taken my
way.
class.
I have to.
So anyway, it's pretty amazing the work that we've been able to accomplish so far in getting the 3 cemeteries that are done. And now the last 2, the 2 largest cemeteries, or the largest with the most stones in them, will be starting a Newtown Cemetery, and then as soon as that one is completed, we'll let the contract for the final cemetery, which would be New North Cemetery. And once that work is complete, we will have in all of the town cemeteries that have monuments in them, all the monuments will be upright, they'll be clean, they'll be, whatever.
Repaired any broken tablets that are able to be repaired. So we did find, I believe, at least one in Old North Cemetery that contractor stated it was basically like sugar in the ground. It deteriorated so much, and that any effort to move it would just disintegrate everything that was there. So it was just kind of cleaned around but left in place and laying down.
We're discovering that styles in material for the monument varied over the years. And the one that we don't know about is the former Gardner burial ground, now called Old North, which has got a large empty patch.
Or seemingly empty.
Well, I think they were wooden, but there are those who say, well, they were probably slate or something akin, thin, and it got buried and they're under the turf.
We didn't GPR that one? We didn't use the ground penetration?
You could,
on that?
I think just a
Yeah.
simple probe would find, I don't think they're there. I think, because it's so uniform.
It's actually,
I think it would be really interesting though to be able to use ground penetrating radar.
Oh, sure.
to survey it. But we have other projects that have priority.
would now be a good time to
Now would
introduce
be a
this.
good time.
To that end, after the last meeting, I reached out and received a quote to do the ground penetrating radar in that section of Old North Cemetery. It's with Hagar Richter Geoscience. They're the ones who did the ground penetrating radar for us in Newtown Cemetery before that work commenced. So we received the quote of $14,000.
It's a lot of money.
We have the funds in our cemetery account, so I ask maybe for a motion and approval to expend those funds.
Charlie, was that 14 for the one cemetery?
Yeah, it's for that section. It's just shy of an acre square footage to go through and give us a detailed record of what they may find.
We're gonna do our thing, Scott? I move approval.
I'll second it. Oh, no, you got it.
So I seconded it.
Right, okay, roll call vote. Louis?
Aye.
Scotty?
Aye.
Brandon? And the chair votes aye.
Thank you much. I'll look at this contracting process.
Great.
So Fran and I we watched them, and what the geophysicist does is he pushes the radar device, and it looks like a very large lawnmower. And so he's just going up and down. But before he began in Newtown, he went over well-marked graves so as to establish a baseline on what a grave looks like. And while we have no need to dwell on this, there are a lot of graves in Newtown underneath Calpon Lane and also underneath the traditional entrance to the cemetery.
The town controls 9 cemeteries, and there are when we were picking the ones for the monuments, we picked the ones that had the number of monuments in it. There are what was I going to go?
Well, while you're collecting your thoughts, Alan, the cemeteries that we picked were either very prominent, like Quaker,
Mhm.
or even though they're close to new lot sales, they may have family lots where burials are still possible. And so it was important to us that they look there.
Now, the fact that we have 9 cemeteries, we only have 1 cemetery out of those 9 where we have space available at the present time, and that's Opus Cemetery, which was when we were formed as a cemetery commission, the first thing we did was we had to find some burial spaces in the town cemetery.
Well,
We-
I was gonna ask you that, is can anyone, like, we have an Indian cemetery. We have one of the oldest Indian churches on the cemetery in the country.
I'm sorry, where is this?
Mashpee. We have one of the oldest churches in the country.
Hmm.
There too. And we have an Indian cemetery. There are only tribal members can be buried there. And sometimes even contested falls. So I'm thinking, you guys don't have that much space on this island. Can anybody just get buried on this island? I mean, you know, I guess some person pop in here and would say, yeah, I want
Yeah,
to fly. I mean, you have some regulations around it.
The answer is yes, and you are nudging up against one of our long-term issues, which would be what happens if we run out of all space.
That's right.
Now, we do have an Indian cemetery,
Oh,
and it's the only one of our 9 that has no monuments except for the entry stone.
then that's
My choice of the oldest.
That's interesting, yeah.
And the reason we have that one is that when there was a plan to do some subdivisions and housing there. And I forget how it came about, but somebody said, well, wait a minute, this was an area where natives were buried.
You know, it's clearly on the Euro map, but nonetheless, people somehow forgot. And so as they were beginning to dig to build some public housing, they dug into the corner of the cemetery. And of course, all the work had to stop
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
Then they defined the bounds, moved the public housing over, had the elders from, I think both Mashpee and Plymouth
Yeah.
come to rededicate the ground. And since then, under NAGPRA, we have interred some remains that had been returned under NAGPRA, and the elders brought them here to
Yeah.
and that was witnessed by Catherine Stover, Audrey Ramos, and me as representative of the community. I think that was a single occasion. It hasn't been done since.
So, and we know that area, well, as the population of Nantucket grew, we know that the native population was concentrated in that area. There have been a number of places around the island where a foundation was being dug or something, and somebody would come up with some bones, and like they had to stop digging and call in the coroner and determine if this was human remains and so on. So there's a fair amount of that because there's been a native population here going back nearly 6,000 years. So
I think Angela was so aware of that.
I mean, I might even have some DNAs probably possibly sprinkled on this island, but I know my DNA is sprinkled all over Cape Cod for sure.
Though there are some good written histories of this. Two of them by Nat Philbrick, Abrams Eyes and the Mayflower. If one goes into our library, the Athenaeum, unless it's been moved, there was a portrait of Abram Quarry, the last native on the island.
But it wasn't.
But it was. It turns out that with a lot of intermarriage between the indigenous people and the colonial people, there were any number of descendants. Many of them went off island, but he was by no means the last.
And that's what brings me here today, is I'm finding pockets in Mashpee that are Nantucket descendants. And it's been kind of fun, you know, some Mashpee don't even know that they're descendants. But many of the natives are a result of several bands, like I'm a Chappaquiddick, Christian Bell, and Mashpee, and that I know of.
Mhm.
And that's because
I'm here, man.
disenfranchising and moved off of our lands, we had to go to the 3 sanctioned Indian towns by the Commonwealth. So we had no choice. So that is why you will find that the Nantucket Indians, not only were they disenfranchised, it was hard to make a living here. And legally, they could only live in certain places like Mashpee and Martha's Vineyard. So anyways, that's why I'm here today, doing some research on that.
Good.
Well, there's a lot of history. I think that's why all of us are as far as members of the Cemetery Commission, we all have an interest in
Yes.
this history.
So Fran is going to take you out to the Indian burial ground,
I haven't yet, but I will.
and not to mention founders.
Yeah, this is very important work, so it is.
Yeah.
I-
Well, now there
I
are
feel the time, this is pressure time because we've been waiting for a report here. Can we move on the agenda?
for,
Oh, we'll get there.
Okay, because I have something too. When we get to old and new business, I
Oh,
have
okay.
something as well.
Okay.
all right. So just to conclude that part of it, as I say, there are 9 town cemeteries, 5 of them with, with a lot of monuments in them. And there are 2 private cemeteries as well, Prospect Hill and St. Mary's. They're both private. And
It's actually 5 now.
Hmm?
There's actually 5.
Just starts.
Prospect Hill, St. Mary's.
There are a couple of columbariums.
And the Jewish burial ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Well, I
Thank
consider
you.
this.
So
So,
we identified the 2 biggest.
okay, anything else? Where were we on that?
Okay.
Have you wrapped up? Or we voting? Oh, we did.
Yep, yeah, we should be moving on to number 4, to Newtown consolidation.
Bye.
And Bob.
Okay, so next, number 5, Newtown plan for consolidation and future projects to improve the cemetery, et cetera. This has been a long-term project. In terms of, the issue here with Newtown Cemetery is that it's one of the older cemeteries on the island. And again, we're not aware of any available burial space in that cemetery. But the cemetery itself, going back in the history of the layout, and Lee is the one who did tremendous research on finding, where the bounds are and the history and transfers and all that sort of stuff. There is a section that is part of the cemetery that is wooded right now. And one of the things that we're here, that Rob is here for, is to try and get the town to recognize where the official bounds of the cemetery are. And in that, in the event that, once we do that, then we'll be able to go in and we'll have, what, approximately an acre or so back there?
I haven't measured it.
Yeah, well, roughly an acre of additional burial space, which is
If
something.
it hasn't been used already.
If it hasn't been, yes, right. Although there are no markers, no monuments.
But we are aware that there are some burials there. The main thing is,
Yeah.
it's wooded and it's also trash strewn. And before we can even begin to try to locate any existing burials, we're going to have to clear it and clean it up.
Oh, yeah, well, the first thing we have to get is the title. We have to
That's right.
have the town
That's why all
decide.
this-
Bob, have you been following this?
Well, again, I'm looking at the agenda and I'm featured here with Tracy. I am working with Tracy on this. Again, I don't have all the background that she may, and it doesn't appear she could be here today, but what I do know is that, and I know you folks have already looked into title and are very experienced in that, but we are working on getting a certified title, which would really be something that the town could rely on.
Exactly.
Take any
So just very quickly, for your benefit and Bob's in particular, Newtown is part of the common and undivided lands of the town and county of Nantucket. It has never been recorded. It does have bounds because the properties around it have been recorded. In 1998, a proposal was made to subdivide, actually, the proposal was probably 97, it was voted on in 98, to subdivide the cemetery into 4 separate lots, one of which will be a road. A very well-known minister, Ted Anderson, stood up at town meeting and said, "You can't do that. There are people buried there." And he was correct. But it took the GPR work done 2015 or 16 to show that there really are burials underneath Calpon Lane. We went to a meeting with town council 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I said, well, it's simple. If it's active as a cemetery and there are burials underway, it is a cemetery. If you can demonstrate that it's been doing that for over 100 years, it is a cemetery. And so we said, can we bring this to town meeting? And it got stalled for the same reason that the land was subdivided. A consultant in the 1990s discovered that the proprietors in 1832 or so set off some land from the
Common and undivided land.
right, and sold it to a Mr. Coffin. And so they were convinced at the time that this was inside the cemetery. And I kept saying, there's no way the proprietors would subdivide a cemetery. It's somewhere out there. It's on the boundaries, which is why I did all the research on what got sold by whom and where. But the critical part, in my mind, is that the 1913 assessor's map, catch this, 1913 is more than 100 years ago, shows the boundaries of Newtown nearly identical to what we see today. And so I keep saying to the attorney, when we say town council, there's 5 or 6 people who fit that definition, led by John Giorgio. But in this case, it's Vicky Marsh, Esquire, who says, no, we've got to determine where this offset went, because if we take what is Newtown Cemetery for the town, we could be liable for payments. And I keep saying, there's no way. There's no way. We know briefly what happened to the offset. 1838 was a depressed time. Poor old Billy Coffin, and God knows how many William Coffins and William Coffin Juniors There are Nantucket, but this particular one died precipitously from a disease. He died intestate. His wife went to the probate court and got permission to deal with the land and promptly sold it because she had no money. And that's where the skeptics say, oh, that land probably belongs to the descendants of not Bacchus, another family that owns land around the cemetery. And we can't find them, but they could show up. And I'm saying, take a chance. There's no way that offset came out of the cemetery. There's no way the proprietors would have sold off a bit of cemetery, particularly now that we know that in 1913, the assessor's map has surrounding it the property owners whom I identified as being outside the cemetery. So Bob, there you go, in a nutshell.
And while all that is undoubtedly accurate, I believe the town is going to rely on the advice of their council in getting a certified title, which is in process. And then as you all probably know, the next step would be then to put a warrant article at town meeting that would allow the town to take the next step towards having it formally recognized as a cemetery. And at this point, I don't have from Tracy, and what I will talk to her about in the interim between meetings is there a time frame for the certified title? And I understand that what this group is looking for. There's possibly a special town meeting this fall, hasn't been decided.
That would be nice.
That could be a target. And so again, we'll talk further about that. But that's really the limit of what I'm able to
I'm
do.
happy to meet with whomever.
It is Vicky Marsh as the council. You're right. That's the person.
And
working.
all of the work that I did, I photocopied every.
Yeah,
deed.
no, that I'm sure, right. Yeah.
And then I gave it to the real estate specialist at the time, who since has left, and nobody knows where the file is.
Oh, do you have, well,
It's somewhere in number
right.
2.
Oh, well,
Fairgrounds.
it's a physical file.
It's
Probably,
physical.
Probably.
Oh, yeah, no, I have the written report with reference to all the deeds.
Oh, feel free to send me your report. Again, understand that everything will be determined, which way the town is going by relying on town council, but it would certainly be helpful to me, and I'd be willing to pass it along if you can get me your file.
Let me introduce Bob.
By Strauss.
And Bob is working with Tracy. Tracy and Bob are focusing on various issues of property.
We are the real estate division.
Yeah.
That's what we are.
So anyway.
And this certainly falls under the umbrella, yes.
Yeah. So I guess the point of all this is that dealing with cemeteries, you have to know some history, and you have to, and they need protection. That's the thing, the way that these things come about, particularly in a community like Nantucket that has a very long history, is that there are, people that have not always kept the best records. And that's part of what we do.
The challenge that we have with the coffin offset is that when the deed was recorded, they very carefully described the bounds, the lines and the corners, but they didn't reference it to any known monument. So it sits there somewhere, but there's no link to other properties around it or to a substantial monument, which today is done routinely. Okay, I do have one more item under this agenda.
Go ahead.
At annual town meeting, there will be a vote in Article 94 on a long-term lease of portions of 48 Sparks Avenue. It looks like this. This is the cemetery. That's Nantucket Auto Body. That's 38, 40, 42, 44, and 46 Sparks Avenue. This one, and I'll pass it around in a minute. This one is Cow Pond Lane. The Nantucket Educational, whatever it's called, Trust needs more housing for teachers, and they want to develop this area, which has been used as a school bus parking lot. It may well be that this article is not called, in which case I would recommend that we do not call it. Let it just move through. But if it is called, Bob, be warned, I'm going to stand up and say the boundary is the Nantucket Newtown Cemetery, and the town needs to identify Newtown Cemetery as a neighbor to this housing development. It probably won't be called.
So here's the cemetery, and so this runs right along with the boundary of the cemetery.
So Tracy has told me about that, just why I knew what I was.
So the article, it's just please Article 94. I just want to-
No, Article 94 for this meeting coming up. And it's approval of a long-term lease. 99 years, I think that's what it says. Oh, no, it's here.
It's the same 99.
Not to
99,
exceed
not to exceed 99 years.
So that's an idea of some of the things that we deal with as far as the cemetery commission. And as I say, we're really looking forward to this because we don't have much burial space. We have added additional lots of pulpits. Most recently, we added another over 100 lots. And, once those are gone,
But they're for in-earnings only,
They're-
and some,
Cremation
Sometimes we
remains
can-
shorthanded to cremains.
I gotta tell
You're
you,
right,
I'm
yeah.
surprised you have room, that was the first thing I thought, or you let anybody go
Yes,
certain places.
that was
Yeah,
discussed,
yeah.
that was discussed here, whether you had to be a Nantucket resident. And we agreed that, no, it's open, anybody can petition.
Yeah.
Because it's unlikely for somebody to want to be buried here unless they had a connection to the island.
And that's,
Not
that's how,
unknown,
is that
but
how it's
unlikely.
going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's
and,
good.
and so far it's been pretty,
Yeah.
as I say, we don't have the requirement that you be, but we have so many summer people who own houses here and live here
Yeah.
during the summer and that's.
Excellent point, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the historical value is,
Yeah.
endless.
thank you.
so that's why we're looking for the additional space for at Newtown so we can get some additional burial plots. Okay, anything else on number 5? Other number 5? No. Historic colors. Yes.
To Bob,
Yes, sir.
we have copies of the 2 GPR reports that were done for Newtown if you don't have instant access to them.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
I can send them
Are
all.
they,
They're digital.
You can send them to
Digital
them? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, number 6, historic colored cemetery video scheduled for May 4th at the Greenland.
It's the premiere.
And then, Fred, you want to comment on?
Well, we're excited, we're generating publicity. It's going to be at the big screen at the Dreamland, which the capacity is 314 people. Josh Gray anticipates every seat being reserved, which means anybody who wants to be at the premiere needs to go to the Dreamland site and reserve a seat. Because if you don't, you may not get in. Charlie, about NCTV, Paul Simonson called me up this noon. He said there's a guy named Frank, and that he's put you and Frank in touch. Is that
Yeah, I emailed an email out to Frank and waited response.
Mhm.
He needs to give me a price quote for, NCTV is Paul, who our director, we're talking to NCTV about filming, the overall premiere event.
And then creating a 1 hour show.
Including the cemetery video, but I believe the plan is after the movie to have presenters come up on stage,
Q&A.
Q&A with people who spoke, and sort of film all that and turn it into a 1 hour production.
So, but you haven't actually connected
I haven't
yet,
yet.
and you haven't gotten a price. What do you think we should do to make the connection work?
I tracked down his phone number earlier today. I'll make an actual physical phone call tomorrow.
Yeah. Frank has done a lot of work with the Civic League for the various forums that Civic League puts on. So he's accustomed not only to working with town people, but also offering a charitable price to people like us who have no money.
Okay, well, let's keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the point at which we should do my little slide?
Yeah, I would say this is old business. Do you want to present it? I was going to meet in with, we had spoke at the last meeting about a potential monument for the Boston family. Fran.
I made a little
Oh, okay.
presentation here. Sometimes pictures are worth more than many words. So, as almost the beginning of the documentary, say that there are headstones for the Boston family, but one of the draws of the Colored Cemetery is people come to find a monument to Captain Absalom Boston, and there isn't one. There is no monument for him or for his wife who died 2 years later. So the next slide.
Somebody's coming into the meeting.
Oops, somebody's coming to the meeting. So basically just. So they find this stone in the ground, and they see the name Boston, and they think they've found Absalom Boston's monument, but this is actually,
It says HC, doesn't it?
it's for his son Absalom Jr., who died as a small child. And it's in the ground and lying in the ground, and Walter felt that this could not be dug out and re-erected, although I would actually like to talk with Walter about that, but that's another project. So the next slide here is what it actually says there.
That's where the HC comes from. Sorry, Fran, for jumping to conclusions.
So there are headstones for the other members of the Boston family. These are his two previous wives. He was widowed twice. So Polly Spyward and Phoebe Spriggans. And Polly had one son and Phoebe had a son and a daughter, and they're buried there. Well, actually, we don't know where Caroline is buried, but Charles and Henry, Charles's stone is flat in the ground, Henry's is upright. And these are their death dates. And then there's this monument that we restored last February, because although the headstone for Phoebe Ann Boston was there, her footstone had gotten loose and it was lying up against a tree, but we knew whose it was because it has her initials on it. And that was taken into the town clerk's vault for safekeeping until we did the restoration work on the Colored Cemetery, at which point Walter replaced Phoebe Ann's footstone. So that's a recently restored grave site. There are no headstones for all of Boston. He died in Boston. Thomas Boston, we know exactly where he's buried in Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. We don't know where Caroline is, and there are no headstones for Absalom and Hannah, probably because the only one of their children who was still here was Caroline. Everybody else had died or left, and she probably simply did not have the means to erect monuments to her parents. So, to continue,
Seems like we're running into another.
it was proposed at our last meeting that we might want to erect a monument now. It won't be a gravestone because we don't know in that family area exactly where they're buried. It will be a monument. And so as a memorial, it should really be to the couple, to Absalom and Hannah Cook Boston. So, next. An example of other monuments that we've done precedents, we erected the Women's Monument, 2009. Added to the one from the 1880s for the men.